If you clicked on this video, chances are you've tried the Pomodoro technique or at least heard of it, but even after trying it out, you still find yourself getting distracted and you're not making the kind of progress that you hoped for with your studying. And now you're falling behind in your study schedule, you're feeling stressed and frustrated and wondering why you still can't stay focused. But what if there's a better way to study, one that actually helps you focus for longer so that you'll feel less stressed and finish what you set out to do? And it's actually recommended by one of internet's go-to experts on productivity, Andrew Huberman, who's a Stanford neuroscientist.
My guest today is Dr. Andrew Huberman.
Andrew Huberman.
And it's made a huge difference in how I study. And in this video, I'll talk about what the Pomodoro technique is, why it might not be effective for studying, and what you can do instead. Let's get into it. Now, most of you watching this have probably tried the Pomodoro technique at some point, and it's a productivity method introduced in the early 1990s by the author Francesco Cirillo. And Cirillo noticed that when we are faced with big tasks or long study sessions, we tend to be more effective if we break the work into short, timed intervals separated by short breaks. And the structure is pretty simple. Like, you study for 25 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break, and then you do another 25-minute session, and you repeat that cycle 4 times, and then you take a longer break, usually around half an hour or so. Now, to be honest, I used this technique a lot back when I was in medical school, especially when I was studying for my physician licensure examinations, or PLE, back in 2017. And mainly because it was one of the few productivity techniques that I knew at the time, and to be fair, it did help me for a while because it sort of forced me to focus for 25 minutes because I knew that there was a 5-minute break coming soon. And maybe some of you can relate to this, like when you sit down to study around the 5th or 10th minute mark, is your mind starts wandering. That happens to me as well sometimes. So telling myself, like, okay, just focus for 25 minutes, like, that made it easier for me to ignore or let go of the distractions. So even if a distracting thought pops up, I just think to myself, all right, I'll just have 10 more minutes and I'll deal with that later. But after a few years, I realized that it wasn't helping me anymore, because what I found was around the 20th or 25th minute, which is where I'm just starting to get into the rhythm of studying and sort of building that momentum, like I was finally becoming focused and I'm finally getting into that zone, is what happens is the timer would go off. I'd be forced to stop because that's the rules of doing the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes, 5-minute break. And so this tool that used to help me focus was now interrupting my focus. It became this rigid rule that I followed even when it wasn't working for me anymore. And so I started looking for other techniques, and I came across this podcast by Andrew Huberman. He's a neurobiologist from Stanford, and he said that the most optimal duration for focused work or studying is actually a 90-minute session. And here's a clip of him saying that.
So my suggestion would be, anytime you're going to sit down and try and focus, you're going to try and do a focused bout of physical exercise or skill learning or musical learning, or maybe you're even just having a conversation. Maybe you're a therapist or you're attending therapy or a class. How long should it be? And the ideal duration is about 90 minutes. Not exactly 90 minutes, but we can reliably say 90 minutes or less. Okay, it doesn't have to be the full 90 minutes, but trying to push yourself to be able to drop into 2 hours of focus or 3 hours of focus while possible is not really in line with what we know about the underlying biology.
So I tried it. I'd study for 90 minutes straight, and then I would take a 5 to 10 minute break, and then I would do that for 3 sessions in a row, and then I would take a longer break, like maybe 30 minutes or even an hour. And honestly, it worked way better for me because I didn't get interrupted at the 25th minute mark anymore with a timer telling me to stop and take a break. And because of that, like, I was actually able to cover more topics and hit my study goals for the day. And I felt less burned out as well. Like, I mean, I still had a lot of study backlogs, but definitely less than I would have had if I stuck with Pomodoro. And also, the fact that this method was suggested by a Stanford neurobiologist, that kind of made me trust it more. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just a placebo effect, but he did say that in the podcast that it is backed by scientific evidence. And honestly, it works for me. And also, what I noticed was around the 80 or 90 minute mark, that's when I'd naturally start to lose focus. And sometimes even earlier, like at the 45th or 50th minute mark. But when I'd look at the timer and say, okay, I've already done 50 minutes, only 40 minutes left. And that sense of progress, it helped me to stay focused because it felt good. I was building momentum. I'd tell myself that I'm more than halfway through and I might as well keep going. And it's that feeling feeling of progress, it's addictive. Like, it makes you want to keep going. All right, so we've basically talked about why the Pomodoro technique might not be that effective when studying and what you can do instead. So I definitely recommend trying the 90-minute focus sessions. And if you're interested in more study techniques, then you might like to check out this video over here. It has 3 things you can do to study much faster and more effectively. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in that video. Bye.